The humid air of the Peruvian Amazon was thick with the scent of wet earth and ancient leaves, the constant hum of insects forming the relentless soundtrack of the jungle. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, leaving the forest floor in perpetual damp shadow. Here, amidst the staggering, indifferent beauty of the lost world, stood Alara. She was 30 years old, wiry, and moved with a silent, confident economy of motion that only comes from years spent navigating treacherous terrain. Alara was currently leading a small, highly privileged expedition. Her official title was Local Logistics Specialist, but to the two Americans she guided, she was just a cheap, expendable tour guide. Her mission, to locate the lost city of Aslan, a mythical Incan outpost supposedly containing treasures of unimaginable historical value. Alara didn't believe in myths, but she believed in the paycheck. She needed the money for the critical, overdue medical treatment for her ailing grandmother. The leader of the expedition was Mr. Julian Vance, no relation to the previous characters. A cold, ruthless tech billionaire who treated the jungle like a lagging software program he intended to optimize for profit. With him was his newly hired young academic advisor, Dr. Ethan Cole, a nervous, credentialed archaeologist who constantly clutched a leather-bound journal. Vance had invested millions based on a cryptic, ancient map fragment he believed held the key to Aslan. They were deep into the jungle, 3 days past the last recognizable river marker. Vance was already impatient. He paused by a massive, buttressed fig tree, swatting angrily at a mosquito. "Alara," Vance barked, not even turning around. This map fragment says the third marker is a triple-eared stone. We've passed 3 distinct rock formations. Which one was it? Your native intuition should be helping us here, not delaying us." Alara stopped, her eyes, the color of dark, polished jade, scanning the canopy and the subtle shift in the vegetation. She didn't rely on intuition. She relied on applied geophysics and advanced topographical mapping. Her secret: she was a disgraced but brilliant former PhD student of computational archaeology who had been kicked out of her prestigious European university years ago for allegedly using unauthorized satellite imagery to locate protected sites. She had traded her academic career for the humility of the jungle, finding more honesty in the roots than in the halls of academia. "The triple-eared stone is not a formation, Mr. Vance," Alara said, her English clear but heavily accented. "It is a carved marker. It is beneath the surface. The mineral density change is detectable here, but we are too far east, Dr. Cole." The young archaeologist scoffed, adjusting his thick-rimmed glasses. "Mineral density? With respect, Alara, are we going to use the stick or the satellite?" Quote, "We rely on textual evidence and geological strata, not folklore and guesswork." "She's just a cheap tour guide, no skills. Let's follow the established trail." Vance turned, his expensive hiking boots muddy, his frustration boiling over. He looked Alara up and down, sizing up her worn clothing against his own specialized gear. "Dr. Cole is right," Vance stated, his voice dripping with condescension. "You were hired for your legs, not your brain. Stick to carrying the supplies and leave the scientific reasoning to us." He pointed to a faint, overgrown path leading west. "We go that way." Alara's jaw tightened, the familiar burn of unjust dismissal searing her. She knew the western path led to an ancient, impassable fault line and a 20-hour detour. The triple-eared stone marker, the critical third navigational node, was 20 meters north of their current position, buried under a few feet of sedimentary rock. She retrieved her worn canvas satchel. Inside, hidden beneath a few bandages and dried rations, was a piece of custom-built equipment. A small, highly modified, low-frequency electromagnetometer microveal number 1. It was a piece of banned Tycoon unauthorized prototype from her old lab design to non-invasively detect buried metallic and carved objects. She had risked everything to bring it, knowing the old map was useless without precise location data. She relied on the tech she was accused of misusing. Alara briefly met Vance's eye, offering a silent challenge. She wanted to tell him that his entire multi-million-dollar investment was about to be wasted by his own arrogant incompetence, but she needed the money. Silence was her price. She shrugged submissively. "As you command, Mr. Vance." She then quietly switched on the electromagneter, tucking the small sensor head discreetly into the soil as she picked up the trail. Vance watched her go, satisfied by her compliance. "That's better," he muttered to Cole. "Know your place. We pay her for the hike, not the hypothesis." He didn't know that the humble guide was currently triangulating his coordinates and already knew the fatal error in his route. The humiliation of being dismissed as mere legs and cheap labor fueled Alara's silent resolve. She continued to walk the western path, following Vance's arrogant direction, but her small modified electromagneter was quietly recording data. Her original setback, the scandal that cost her academic career, was born from this very tension between recognized academic method and necessary technological advantage. She had been accused of forging archaeological finds using her unauthorized deep scanning technology to save time, a charge she vehemently denied but could not disprove without revealing the sensitive prototype tech she was developing. She fled the scrutiny, convinced that the most valuable discoveries were those made in silence, far from the jealous scrutiny of the establishment. For the next 8 hours, Alara endured the mockery as the jungle grew thicker and the path grew worse. Dr. Cole, the young archaeologist, constantly consulted his meticulously annotated 19th century map, guiding them through dense thickets and across slippery ravines. "See, Alara?" Cole sneered, wiping sweat from his brow. Textual evidence triumphs over mineral density. "We're making excellent time." Alara knew they were heading directly into a major, unmapped gorge, a geological barrier confirmed by her scanner that Cole's outdated map completely missed. She maintained her silence, occasionally pointing out genuine dangers such as a venomous serpent hidden beneath a root. This small, crucial intervention, saving Dr. Cole from a potentially fatal bite, only registered to him as the lucky intuition of a native guide. "Good eye, Alara," Vance commented dismissively. "That's why we keep you around." Rising mockery. The failed route and the impossible challenge by late afternoon. The group was exhausted, and their excellent time brought them to a precipitous 50-meter drop into a gorgean, impassable chasm that abruptly terminated their route. Vance erupted in fury. "What is this, Cole? Your map is useless?" Cole, panicked and embarrassed, stammered, "This isn't marked, sir. It must be a recent seismic event." Vance turned his wrath onto Alara, the obvious scapegoat. "Alara, you're supposed to know this land. Why didn't you warn us about this monstrosity? We've wasted an entire day." Alara slowly set down her heavy pack. She pointed to the massive ancient trees growing at the gorge's edge. "Mr. Vance, the age of those trees suggests this fissure is at least 500 years old. Not seismic, just unmapped. I tried to indicate the change in soil composition hours ago, but you insisted on the western path." Vance's rage crystallized into an impossible challenge, designed to destroy her credibility and save his ego. "Right. You claim to know this jungle better than my $100,000 a year consultant, Dr. Cole. You claim your mineral density can find an invisible rock marker. I will give you an impossible challenge right now. We need the third marker to correct our course. You said it was 20 meters north. I will give you $5 million, your grandmother's medical fees. Everything you need if you can locate that triple-eared stone and prove your location is correct within the next hour." He laughed, a short, vicious sound. "But if you fail, you are fired. You owe me the cost of this detour, and I will ensure you never get another guiding job in this region." She's just a cheap tour guide. No skills. "Let's see your science now." The impossible challenge was set. $5 million versus the total destruction of her future. Alara looked at the money, then at her tired, aching body, and finally at the smug contempt in Vance's eyes. She knew she had the technology, but using it publicly meant revealing the sophisticated analytical methods she had hidden, risking professional scrutiny and possibly legal action against her banned equipment. The ethical choice was to hide. The moral necessity was to save her grandmother. The test of competence. "Deploying the hidden skill, I accept your challenge, Mr. Vance," Alara said, her voice clear and resonant. She turned her back on the furious billionaire and walked 20 paces north, ignoring the faint false trails. She reached a nondescript patch of jungle floor, covered in ferns and loose sediment. She pulled a small, folded aluminum rod from her pack, the external antenna for her electromagneter, and quickly assembled it. Dr. Cole watched with scoffing disbelief. "What is that, a divining rod? Are we searching for water, Alara?" Alara ignored him. She activated the hidden device. The small LED screen on the handle came alive, displaying a complex layered image, a 3D geological map overlaid with thermal and mineral density scans. She saw the location immediately, 3 feet below the surface, a large rectangular block of carved granite, positioned precisely at a magnetic anomaly consistent with ancient Incan smelting practices. Microveal number 2. The screen showed a perfect outline of the triple-eared stone marker, confirmed not by folklore but by computational mapping. Elias focused on the specific spot, The challenge was not just finding the stone, but proving it was there within the deadline. She pulled a small, foldable, high-impact composite shovel from her pack, not the flimsy tool of a typical guide, but the specialized equipment of a serious researcher. She began to dig with ferocious speed and accuracy. Her movements were not the rough, amateur digging of a laborer, but the precise, structured excavation of a trained archaeologist working against time. She removed the sediment layer by layer, preserving the integrity of the surrounding soil. Vance and Cole watched the bizarre display, their mockery slowly turning to confusion as Alara's rapid, structured excavation focused entirely on one small, specific area. She was digging straight down with zero deviation. Microveal number 3. As she reached the final layer of hardened clay, she stopped abruptly, pulling a fine bristled brush from her pack and clearing the last debris with the delicate touch of a curator. She was treating the dirt not as an obstacle, but as a protective layer. The evidence was about to be undeniable. Alara felt the intense focus of Vance and Cole, their mockery having curdled into incredulous silence. Her movements were a silent, devastating critique of their chaotic approach. She brushed the final layer of hardened clay away, and the object was revealed. A large, meticulously carved granite block. The distinctive triple-eared stone marker, the critical navigational node confirming the mythical lost city of Aslan, was indeed nearby. It was positioned exactly 3 feet beneath the surface, precisely where her electromagneter had indicated. Vance stared at the marker, his face slack with shock. The stone was ancient, covered in the patina of centuries, yet it was revealed with the fresh clarity of a surgeon exposing a hidden organ. Dr. Cole fell to his knees, his jaw dropping as he recognized the marker from his obscure academic texts. The stone was undeniable proof, and its location, achieved through methods they had scorned, was an absolute validation of Alara's hidden skill. "The marker is correct," Cole whispered, his voice trembling with awe. "The carvings. They perfectly match the codices, but how? How did you know the precise depth and location without using heavy geophysical equipment?" Elias, exhausted but resolute, finally abandoned her guise. She looked directly at Vance, her eyes blazing with hard-won authority. "Mr. Vance, Dr. Cole," she stated, her English suddenly losing its heavy, hesitant accent, becoming crisp and professional. "You assumed I was a mere laborer based on my clothes and my silence. You risked your multi-million-dollar investment on an inaccurate 200-year-old map and the arrogance of your own ego. I, however, relied on applied computational archaeology, a field of study you deemed unworthy of your attention." She pointed to the triple-eared stone. "This marker has a distinct magnetic signature from the trace elements used in its carving. My equipment detected that anomaly and provided a non-invasive, 3-dimensional topographical map of the subsoil, which is far more reliable than your consultant's guesswork. I know exactly where Aslan is. I knew exactly where your faulty path would lead. I am not just a cheap tour guide. I am Dr. Alara Petrova, a former PhD candidate in computational archaeology, and the developer of the very technology you consider illegal." The full revelation was a bomb dropped in the jungle. Vance staggered backward, the reality of her hidden identity slamming into him. He realized he had mocked, belittled, and almost fatally endangered the one person who held the key to his entire operation. His initial rage was replaced by overwhelming, calculating awe. Justice, validation moment. Vance swallowed hard, adjusting his stance. He was a ruthless businessman, and he understood the scale of the power standing before him. He pulled out his satellite phone. "Dr. Petrova, the challenge is complete. You win the $5 million, but that is irrelevant now. My entire future hinges on Aslan. Name your true price. And Dr. Cole, you are done. Your outdated methods and your contempt for actual skill are costing me millions. Gather your equipment. You are returning to the river tomorrow." Dr. Cole, defeated, looked at the undeniable scientific proof exposed by Alara, then at the termination notice in Vance's eyes. He had lost his career and his credibility to the very technology he had scoffed at. He crumbled onto the soil, his academic pride shattered. Alara ignored Cole's fate. She looked at Vance, the tired farmer's granddaughter who had just won a fortune and her dignity. "My price is not just money, Mr. Vance," Alara stated, her voice strong and unwavering. "My price is control. You will fund the entire Aslan excavation, but I will lead it. I will manage the data, and I will ensure the findings are published with total academic integrity, free from your corporate spin. And every piece of equipment, including the scanners I have developed, will be legally certified and protected under my name. You want Aslan, you work for me now. Vance didn't hesitate. He knew true genius when he saw it. Done, Dr. Petrova. You lead. I follow. Now tell me, how far is Aslan? Elara smiled, the first genuine tired smile of the entire expedition. She pointed to a dense, overgrown ridge just half a day's walk away, a place too subtle to be spotted by conventional methods, but illuminated by her secret science. We are less than 8 hours from the city. But first, we need rest. And I need a new contract, one with my full title. The humble tour guide was now the commander-in-chief, ready to claim her destiny and her science. The immediate aftermath of the revelation was a study in efficient transformation. Within 48 hours, Vance had his private helicopter fly in a team of legal and support staff, who worked under Elara's direction. The $5 million for her grandmother's care was immediately wired. The new contract, meticulously drafted and legally ironclad, positioned Dr. Elara Petrova as the principal investigator, granting her full autonomy over the Aslan project. Julian Vance, the Tycoon, became the project's financier and logistics manager, a role he accepted with surprising humility. Recognizing that his access to the prize depended entirely on Elara's genius, Dr. Cole was airlifted out the next morning, defeated and professionally discredited by his own arrogance. Under Elara's direction, the team located the lost city of Aslan in less than 10 hours. It was a site of breathtaking historical significance, confirming the brilliance of her computational methods. The expedition was not just a corporate success for Vance. It was an archaeological triumph for Elara. The jungle was still there, but Elara's life was unrecognizable. She was now the celebrated director of the Petrova Institute for Non-Invasive Archaeology, headquartered at a major university. She had successfully completed the first phase of the Aslan excavation, ensuring every finding was catalogued and preserved according to the highest academic standards. Her once-banned low-frequency electromagnetor, now legally patented and refined, was the standard piece of equipment for non-invasive exploratory work globally. Transformation. Elara was no longer in a faded canvas shirt. She wore practical, custom-designed field gear and commanded respect in every room she entered. She had leveraged Vance's financing not just for the dig, but to establish a foundation dedicated to funding indigenous community health services and promoting ethical archaeology. Her grandmother was fully recovered and living comfortably. Julian Vance was surprisingly redeemed. Under Elara's leadership, he discovered that success rooted in integrity and actual scientific discovery was more rewarding than mere corporate conquest. He became Elara's staunchest supporter, redirecting his vast financial resources into ethical research and conservation. A complete reversal of his previous ruthless mentality. The young support staff who had quietly respected Elara's skills were promoted to lead field positions, replacing the old, arrogant guard. Elara had created a meritocracy based on competence and respect for the environment, not titles or university degrees. 1 year later, Elara stood on a high ridge overlooking the canopy, the newly established Petrova Institute research camp bustling below. She was guiding a new team of student archaeologists, teaching them how to deploy the advanced scanning technology. A nervous, newly hired student, fresh out of a prestigious university, looked at the dense foliage and asked, "Dr. Petrova, the map says the next site is directly west, but the terrain looks impossible. Should we trust the established maps?" Elara smiled, remembering the arrogance that had almost derailed her own life. She pulled out a sleek, modern version of her electromagnetor, the very tool that had sealed her fate and freedom. "Maps are a starting point, but they are often built on assumptions," Elara told the student. "Never confuse the paper with the reality. In this jungle, the true guide is the data, and the true skill is the humility to listen to the science, even when it comes from the quietest voice." She handed the sophisticated scanner to the student. The once cheap tour guide who was mocked for her lack of skill had not just found a lost city. She had rewritten the rules of discovery, proving that the greatest skills are often hidden by the arrogant who are too blind to look past their own contempt. Subscribe, like, and comment your location. Which mythical lost site do you think Dr. Petrova should target for excavation next?